federal judge has just declined to issue an order halting Elon Musk and DOGE from accessing federal data and slashing personnel. Attorneys general from 14 states are attempting to stop Musk and DOGE from accessing data in 7 federal agencies and from firing or putting on leave employees in those agencies. U.S. District Court Judge Chutkan just refused to issue a ruling from the bench. So at that point, she has not halted Musk and DOGE from continuing their actions inside the 7 agencies at issue here.
Harris Faulkner reporting there for Fox News on this U.S. District Judge Chutkan rejecting the effort to block Elon Musk and DOGE from accessing government systems. Of course, the left is going to do everything they can to push back against Donald Trump, the Donald Trump administration, Elon Musk's DOGE efforts, and they don't have the personnel, the seats in Congress to be able to really stop anything. So the court system is where they are looking to fight back. Let's get to our next guest. Excited to have Gregg Jarrett back on the show with us, Fox News legal analyst and a former defense attorney and law professor and author of The Constitution and Other Patriotic Documents. Gregg, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us today.
Good to be with you, Annie. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, it's our pleasure. So I want to ask you to kind of lay it out for us, the legal efforts that are being used to push back against the Trump administration and DOGE. Have they had success in any of these lawsuits that they've put out? This Chutkan ruling seems to be a pretty good one for the Trump administration.
Well, it is, particularly since Tanya Chutkan is notoriously hostile to Donald Trump. Not just in the Jack Smith lawfare case that she presided over, but in the J6 cases in which she lashed out not so much at the defendants, but at Donald Trump. She all but accused him of inciting violence, and of course he was never charged with that because that's not what he did under the law. So for her, of all people, to say, you know, there's really no merit to this lawsuit is, you know, I think symbolic of the power of the presidency. Presidents have broad authority under Article 2 of the Constitution to govern and control agencies and departments in the executive branch, which includes how much money is being spent, hiring and firing, auditing for waste, fraud, and abuse. And so what Donald Trump is doing is exercising a core responsibility, and he is serving the public's interest, which is his solemn duty. And the question, you know, legally has been, can he delegate that power to DOGE and Elon Musk? And the answer is, of course he can. He's the chief executive. He's in charge of, if you will, the bureaucracy in the executive branch. And there's a large body of law that says he doesn't need to seek congressional approval from Senate confirmation. A great many, the vast majority of appointments in the executive branch are without Senate confirmation, advise, and consent. You know, but of course, Donald Trump knew that Democrats and liberals would run to the favorable judges and cry, oh, gee, he's stopping our fraud and our waste. We want that to continue. So, you know, for some of these cases where temporary restraining orders have been issued, I think ultimately the Supreme Court may have to weigh in and Trump will prevail because the law is squarely on his side.
You know, it's been a while to watch this first month almost here of the Trump administration and the rapid pace with which he's signed executive orders and proclamations. Can you assess for us, in your legal expertise, the preparedness that Donald Trump and his administration came in with, maybe the wording of these executive orders, the legal standing? Because I would assume that he's going in thinking, all right, they're going to throw out every legal challenge they can against us. How would you consider his batting average, per se, here on putting this information out for the American people, making these executive orders, and doing it in a way that was well prepared to stand up against the legal challenges he'd face?
Well, I looked to polling data for one metric. CBS found that 70% of Americans agree the president is doing precisely what he promised, and a majority approve of it. because that was, after all, a key part of his mandate. It's why people voted for him. They're sick and tired of government waste, too much spending. And as the new Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bassett, said, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, echoing the words of Ronald Reagan decades ago. I think Democrats are picking the wrong battle here. What person in their right mind wants to continue billions of dollars, taxpayer money, squandered on fraud and waste? But, these lawsuits by liberal organizations, Democrats, state attorney generals, they are so myopic. They just reflexively take action against anything that Donald Trump does. And their lawsuits, I think, in the end, make them look like, in the eyes of the American people, like they favor financial abuse. And they don't realize that. What DOGE and Musk have uncovered so far is really quite shocking. They've discovered that 20% of government spending is wasted. And they have found billions of dollars in misplaced funds. No accountability for where the money is going. And we're talking about eye-popping sums that are lavished on foreign entities. USAID, to take just one example, was so out of control, giving away boatloads of taxpayer money like, it's free candy.
Yeah.
Projects like Sesame Street in Iraq, DEI in Serbia. And they've already found billions in waste at the Environmental Protection Agency. They're going to find even more at the Pentagon. They just started opening the books there.
We're speaking with Gregg Jarrett right now. Do you feel like anything? It feels like fraud to me, but I don't know legal. I don't have any legal expertise like you do, and I certainly am not an economist myself. But we're finding a lot of these checks that have been written to these entities, and we were just discussing earlier on the show that it doesn't feel so much like it was really about getting Elmo in Iraq, but there are probably some people who benefited financially greatly on the path between the taxpayer having that dollar and Elmo arriving in Iraq. Is there fraud here, do you think, that's going to be uncovered?
Oh, I absolutely do. Criminal fraud. Because so many of the, hundreds of millions, if not billions, was cleverly disguised. And it really took some, computer experts, which Musk's team certainly are, to sort of wipe away the veil of deceit. And I think in the end, you're going to find things like kickbacks, people who are making money for, doling out financial largesse to, pet projects and favored clients. I think the risk is really great for fraud at the Pentagon, which has been notorious, for charging, $500 for a $20 hammer. Things like that. And so, I think as they uncover more, and, they may have uncovered only, 5% so far. It's going to be a long slog because, under the Biden administration, the bureaucracy was so adept at concealing the money that they were just tossing out the window.
Gregg Jarrett speaking with us right now, Fox News legal analyst. He also operates thegreggjarrett.com. And I'm looking at this article that you have from a little while ago, the 14th Amendment being the birthright citizenship portion of that being challenged by the Trump administration. And in this article, which I will post out on X here for people to read your take on it, you're talking about the citizenship clause itself. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Even the New York Times, I believe it was, recently came out and was like, well, there's a little gray area here. Where do you think the Trump administration is going with their push to end the anchor baby system that has existed in our country for some time?
Well, I think President Trump and legal advisors have determined what I discovered a long time ago, that for more than a century, the 14th Amendment has been egregiously misinterpreted. You know, it was ratified after the Civil War, and its objective was to grant citizenship and full rights to formerly enslaved people. There is very little evidence that Congress meant to extend citizenship to children of people here illegally. I had to laugh when I, read the New York Times op-ed. They made the same arguments I made in the column I wrote weeks before. And, maybe they read my column and looked into it and said, gee whiz, there's a valid argument here that, birthright citizenship in the landmark case, U.S. versus Wong, extended citizenship to children born of parents here who were lawfully and permanent residents, originally from China. That case does not stand for the proposition that citizenship is conferred to children of parents who were here illegally. How does it stand to reason that you can benefit with citizenship by breaking our laws? That's not what the framers of the 14th Amendment intended. And if you go back, as I did, through the legislative history of the 14th Amendment, you'll discover that Senator Lyman Trumbull, who was a moving force behind the 14th Amendment, specifically stated that the Citizenship Clause does not encompass people who are here illegally or subject to any other foreign power and owing allegiance to it.
It's an incredibly interesting concept, and I think that a lot of the fodder that it gets discussed, of course, on social media and stuff, it doesn't really go deep into it like you have. And at thegreggjarrett.com, you've got this article up on it. How quickly do you think that this particular case, of course, the challenge to Donald Trump's executive order, how quickly does this navigate through the legal system to get to potentially, ultimately, the Supreme Court for a resolution?
Well, there's really no way of telling it. It really depends on district court rulings and appellate rulings. So the timetable is really open and undetermined. But, I think certainly within, his presidency in the next 4 years, I think inevitably the Supreme Court will have to take a look at this. As they're going to, this is going to be a busy SCOTUS. The justices are not going to be able to take too many vacations because they're going to have a full docket.
Yeah. Well, it's like buckle up stuff for so many Americans right now watching such a transformational new administration come in. And the legal challenges, there's so much going on, and your expertise is necessary for us to understand it a little bit better. So we're really appreciative of your time today. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Annie.
You bet. We'll have you again on soon. Bye-bye. He's a Fox News legal analyst, former defense attorney and law professor, Gregg Jarrett.